What's going on, guys? It's Zach here, bringing you guys another fantasy football video. So I'm going to be going over my biggest risers and fallers after having reworked all of my rankings after the first 2 weeks of the preseason. I'll be sure to be updating my rankings and keep putting those up on the website for you guys as well. So do feel free to go take a look at my website at www.realsteelfb.com. There are rankings and more information there for you guys for free, and I highly recommend that you guys use that. It's obviously free for all of you guys, and just should be a nice, useful tool for you guys heading into your drafts. But these are 11 players that I've had really shift down or up in my rankings quite a bit just after all the information that we've gathered over the last couple weeks of the offseason. It's obviously just good to keep updating your rankings, stay fluid, make sure that we keep things as up to date as possible, and making sure that, you know, every new piece of information we get can really do as much as we can to really influence how we're viewing players. So these are guys that I really think are rising up and down boards for right now, and especially for me, and the guys that I'll sort of give you whether or not I think they're still worth drafting at their current ADP or not. So yeah, with that, let's just get into the first player here. So for starters, my biggest riser at the wide receiver position right now is going to be Zay Flowers. He's absolutely shot up my rankings after the last couple weeks of his performance in training camp. He's all the way up to being my wide receiver 26 right now. He just looks to be like the clear wide receiver 1 in Baltimore. He played last week in the preseason, had 2 catches for 36 yards, scored a touchdown. He just looked really good. All the reports out of training camp are that he's just been an elite route runner. He's getting comps to Antonio Brown, which obviously it's far too early to be giving him those sort of comparisons, but he really is an elite route runner. He looks really good with the ball in his hands in open space, and he's a guy that could honestly profile as a nice deep threat as well. I think he could easily slot into being like a more talented version of what they had in Marquise Brown earlier, just 2 years ago, and he's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 47, so I highly recommend that you do target him in your drafts right now. Obviously, wide receiver 26 is not where you need to be taking him. You can get him much later than that, but if you can get him at the wide receiver 47, that is highway robbery. I think he's going to be a guy that you can really comfortably play as a wide receiver 3 this season, and honestly, towards the second half of the season, I could easily see him putting up some top 20 numbers. So, yeah, I really like Zay Flowers right now, and he's a guy that I'm absolutely targeting in a draft right now. So my biggest riser at the running back position is going to be KHALIL Herbert. Herbert just looks to be really locked into that running back 1 role in the Chicago Bears offense. He sat out of preseason week 2 for them. He played all of the snaps with Justin Fields in week 1. He looked really good with those touches. He even took a screen pass for 60-something yards to the house. He's just a really talented player. He's always been extremely efficient with the ball in his hands, averaging over 5 yards per carry over the course of his career. And their offensive coordinator came out recently and said that KHALIL Herbert's done nothing to lose the starting role in this offense. That means that even the Bears are coming out and telling us that KHALIL Herbert is the starting running back in the offense. I know a lot of people are worried about Deonta Foreman coming in and potentially stealing touches. Roschon Johnson's a popular prospect as well. And I think Roschon Johnson's actually a pretty good player out of Texas as well. He should be a guy that really can catch a lot of passes in this offense, and maybe he does profile to be the third down back, but that's not really a very valuable role in this offense. On top of that, KHALIL Herbert did remain on the field for a 3rd and long with Justin Fields in the first week of the preseason, so I'm not super worried about KHALIL Herbert losing those passing down touches. And on top of that, this is a Bears team that really just doesn't target the running back position very much at all anyway. Losing out on that opportunity doesn't really hurt him all that much. But he's going to be seeing a lot of rushing work. I do expect him to get at least 15 carries a game. I think he could easily be a guy that rushes for over 1,000 yards this season, and honestly, 10 touchdowns are in his range of outcomes as well. I think we should easily project him to see about 250 touches this season, and if that happens, he's easily going to smash his ADP of the running back 33. He's one of my favorite running backs to target late in drafts if you want to go RB0 and target him to be your running back 2 later on, or if you just want a nice little bench player that you maybe don't need to start week 1, but a guy that could really help you over the course of the season. I think KHALIL Herbert's a really nice target right now. So another one of my biggest risers right now at the wide receiver position is going to be JAHAN. I've always been a very real fan of the player. I think he's an extremely talented wide receiver. He's a really great route runner. He's shown the ability to score in the NFL level. He's scoring 7 touchdowns as a rookie last season, and this preseason's just giving me a little bit more confidence in what the Commanders' offense is going to be this season. They recently hired Eric Bieniemy to be their new offensive coordinator, and their last couple preseason games have looked really good. Sam Howell has looked absolutely fantastic at the quarterback spot, and honestly, I think Howell does offer them a legitimate shot to have potentially found their quarterback of the future, something that we really couldn't say about the Commanders in the previous years. And that coupled with the turf toe injury that we saw Terry McLaurin suffer in week 2 of the preseason, Terry McLaurin looks to be a long shot to just questionable for week 1. If that's the case, I think that we're really going to see an opportunity here for JAHAN to cement himself as the wide receiver 1 in Washington. I think both of these guys, Terry McLaurin and JAHAN, are really talented wide receivers, and I do still have Terry McLaurin ranked ahead of JAHAN, but just by a few spots at this point, and Dotson does have a legitimate shot to overtake him. Dotson does have that upside. He was a first-round draft pick last season. He's a really talented player. If this offense is even close to average, I think they can easily support both those wide receivers with how condensed the target tree is going to be. And he's currently being drafted as the wide receiver 36. I've now moved him up ahead of that ADP as my wide receiver 30. So he's definitely a guy that I'm targeting in the middle rounds right now, and a guy that I do highly recommend you guys take a look at as well. So another riser for me is going to be Tyler Lockett, and I was actually already really high on Tyler Lockett, having him ranked as my wide receiver 18 previously, but he did rise one spot up to my wide receiver 17, and I think what's notable here is that I think that there was a part of me that did feel like I could be potentially lowering Tyler Lockett in my rankings over the course of the offseason, and I really haven't been given reason to do that. JSN has looked good, not great so far in the preseason, and now he's dealing with a wrist injury that could keep him sidelined for the first several weeks, potentially. It does look like week 1 is going to be a long shot for him. Last I heard, he still has not received that wrist surgery that's going to be putting him up against the 3 to 4 week timeline, and week 1's in like 2.5 weeks at this point. So JSN is going to miss time, and that means that Lockett's just locked right back into being that number 2, arguably number 1, so basically a 1B in this offense. Geno's looked really good this offseason as well. I perfectly expect this offense to be a really good offense again this season. And the RB room in Seattle's been pretty banged up with Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet both dealing with injuries over the course of the offseason. The Seahawks might need to be even more pass heavy than we thought they were going to be coming into the year. And Tyler Lockett's been a top 15 guy for the last several years. I do not exactly expect him to finish in the top 15 again this season, just because I do think that eventually JSN's going to get going and steal some of those targets from him. But he's still a really talented wide receiver. This is going to be a good offense, and Tyler Lockett's been a huge target for me right now. He's currently being drafted outside the top 24 at the position, and being able to draft him that late is just a really great value. So I highly recommend targeting Tyler Lockett right now, and I really do think he's going to be a guy that could potentially go maybe even a little bit later than where he's going right now in drafts once your draft starts. So now we've got the only quarterback on this list for me, and that's going to be Russell Wilson. We've been hearing all offseason about how Russell Wilson has slimmed down, and obviously I always have to take those reports with a grain of salt. It's come around July, August, we always hear how every player is in the best shape of their life, but I think it really is seeming to be the case for Russell Wilson right now. We finally saw it in week 2 of the preseason with just how mobile he looked. They ran a read option for him that he gained several yards on. He's had a scramble for 17 yards, and he only played one drive because Sean Payton said he looked so good that he just didn't want to really worry about him being out there with injury. He saw everything he needed to see, so he pulled him. Russell Wilson's locked in to be their starter this season. He's a very talented quarterback. I do fully expect a bounce-back season for Russell Wilson this season, and if he's going to offer a legitimate rushing floor, which it really looks like he's going to, we did hear today that Jerry Jeudy suffered a minor hamstring injury, so we're still waiting for some news on that. It does sound like Judy's probably going to be questionable for week 1, but it's not going to be long-term. But if Jeudy were to be expected to miss extended time, I would be a little bit more concerned about this Russell Wilson take, but with the health of the wide receiver chart as it is, I still think there are enough weapons to make this offense move. Russell Wilson's going to be a really talented runner of the ball as well. They've got good running backs. They've got a good tight end room. This offense is probably going to be about middle of the pack this season, but I think you could easily see Russ throw for over 30 touchdowns again this season. He could probably add 500 rushing yards on the ground as well. And if that happens, he's going to be just a much better player than where he's being drafted. After statting everything out, Russ is actually my quarterback 8 right now. He's currently being drafted as a quarterback 18. So he's one of my favorite targets if you want to wait at the quarterback position and just take 2. Russ would be one of my guys that I'd really be targeting as that high upside guy, and a guy that really could be a difference maker for you guys this season. So my first faller now is going to be BREECE Hall. He was one of my least exposed running backs already coming into coming into August. Another running back that I really wasn't drafting that much on. I've always been pretty low on him coming into this season, just because of how rare it is that we see running backs come off of a torn ACL and then perform at a high level. But he's now ranked as my running back 29, despite an ADP of the running back 15. He's likely going to start the season very slow, given he's still coming back from that injury. He doesn't really seem to be cutting off of that left leg very much. And on top of that, Dalvin Cook's going to be the guy that probably operates as the 1A to start the season. And honestly, Dalvin Cook's a really talented player. They gave him $7 million. That says that the Jets are worried about BREECE Hall's health as well. And honestly, BREECE Hall is the guy that they want to be the future of their running back position. It makes a lot more sense for the Jets to just lean on Dalvin Cook right now and then make sure that BREECE Hall is healthy come next season. I just don't really see the ceiling for BREECE Hall. I don't see a world where he ever really cracks a 50-50 timeshare. And being in a 50-50 timeshare in what should be probably about a middle-of-the-pack offense, I don't think anybody's expecting the Jets to be a top 5 offense or anything this season, so it's not going to be an offense that I'm really expecting a whole lot of production out of, and even though BREECE Hall is extremely talented, he's probably going to be getting 10 to 15 touches a week, and that's just going to not make him a very productive, very reliable fantasy option, and it's just not a guy that I'm really excited about. You would need an injury to Dalvin Cook for him to really shoot up my rankings. And I think even if Dalvin Cook did go down, I don't think they really want to give Breece Hall a full workload. I still think they'd try and mix in guys like Michael Carter. They might look to go add another running back as well. And I just think they're worried about giving Breece Hall a full workhorse workload. I think that his workload's going to be limited. His efficiency is going to be limited this season. And it's just not a guy that I'm really targeting at all this year, although I do think he's extremely talented and he could certainly make me look bad for this take. But I just don't see a world where he really outperforms his ADP right now. And I think really if you get running back 2 production out of him at all, you got lucky. So another follower for me is going to be De'Von Achane, the rookie running back in Miami. I still think he's an extremely talented player and a guy that could be really explosive on a per-touch basis, but he already left week 2 of the preseason with a shoulder injury. He was picked up and thrown down on his shoulder, sort of had an AC joint sprain. He's just a really small player. He weighs less than 190 pounds. It's going to make it really difficult for a player like him to stay on the field if he's given a significant workload. And on top of that, the Dolphins continue to be extremely involved in trade talks surrounding Jonathan Taylor, Josh Jacobs. They've made it very clear that they do want to add a star running back, which means that A, they don't really think that they have that star running back on their roster, and B, it just sort of makes me more confident this is going to end up being a 3-way timeshare between Jeff Wilson, Raheem Mostert, and De'Von Achane. So I just don't really see any upside here for De'Von Achane anymore. I think that maybe you get lucky with one of the other 2 guys ahead of him getting injured, and then he just ends up sprinkling in on first and second downs and then getting all the third down work. And that is still possible for him, and this is going to be a really good offense. So if you want to take like a last-round flyer on De'Von Achane, I still think you can. But I've got him all the way ranked down as my running back 58. It's just a guy that I'm pretty much not drafting at this point. I think you can do a lot better later on in the draft. There are other handcuffs I'd rather have, and other guys with more upside that I'd just rather have that I don't think need probably 2 injuries to pay off at their ADP. So I'm passing on De'Von Achane at this point. I think that even Myles Gaskin looks to be ahead of him on the depth chart, it seems like, with how they're utilizing guys in training camp, and I'm just not super excited about him the way I was a few weeks ago. So another follower for me, and this one might surprise some people, is going to be DeAndre Swift. And although I do think that DeAndre Swift probably slots in as the running back you want to own in Philadelphia, I just don't think there's going to be really any running backs that you want to use on a week-to-week basis. I think it's very clear at this point that the Eagles are going to utilize 3 running backs, not 2. When I initially did my projections, I sort of just assumed that Rashad Penny was going to get the first and second down work, and then we'd see DeAndre Swift sprinkling in there and then getting all the pass-catching work. But it really seems like Kenneth Gainwell is going to be an extremely integral part of this offense. He's a guy that's probably going to get the 2- and 4-minute offense, could easily get the third down work as well, and it's just going to make it a really muddy situation in Philadelphia. For a team who doesn't throw the ball to the running backs very often, to be utilizing 3 of them, it's going to make it really difficult for any of them to exceed ADP, especially DeAndre Swift, who profiles as a pass catcher. On top of that, I think the goal line opportunities are probably just going to get split between all 4 guys, that 4th guy being Boston Scott as well, who just finds a way to score a few touchdowns every single season. And on top of that, Jalen Hurts is going to steal a lot of the goal line work as well. So Swift probably needs an injury to pay off his ADP right now. He's currently being drafted 69th overall in the 6th round. I've got him ranked as my running back 38. It's just not a guy that I'm targeting at all. I think you can do a lot better in the 6th round. And even though I do think DeAndre Swift's extremely talented, I don't want to be drafting a player in the 6th round that I think needs an injury for him to pay off at his ADP. So now we've got the only tight end on this list. That's going to be TJ Hockenson, who's another follower for me. He's only fallen 1 spot for me all the way down to the tight end 5 spot, which is perfectly fine to bump Darren Waller up ahead of him. But his offseason's just been a little bit weird. He's been dealing with an ear infection that's kept him out most of training camp, and now he's dealing with lower back soreness. There are now reports coming out of Minnesota that he could be seeking a new contract, and this could be contract related. But I'm worried about a guy that one of the biggest upsides for him was that now he's finally got a whole offseason to get incorporated into this offense. The guy who, we saw him get traded from Detroit to Minnesota last season, and he did perform really well with limited time. We thought he'd be able to take that step forward now that he had a full offseason to really get in the flow of things, and he really just hasn't had that. I still think he's a pretty safe pick. I don't really see a world where he's a bust just because of how high the volume is going to be in Minnesota, but I don't really find myself targeting TJ Hockenson anymore. He goes in like the 4th, 5th round, and I think you can get a lot better players there. There are plenty of running backs and wide receivers that I love in that range, and then I'd rather just wait the extra round and get Dallas Goedert, who I have ranked higher. I have Darren Waller ranked higher, who's going later as well, and I do think Darren Waller is a much riskier pick, but the upside's definitely there for Waller as well, and I just don't find myself targeting TJ Hockenson at all. He's pretty much become a guy that I really just don't even look for in drafts at this point. So even though he's my tight end 5, it's just not somebody that I'm targeting anymore. And the last follower for me is going to be Rashod Bateman, sort of in the same vein of why Zay Flowers has risen so much for me. We've seen Rashod Bateman miss most of the entire offseason, and Zay Flowers has really established himself as a really talented player, a guy that I'm expecting to be the number 1 wide receiver in Baltimore, and that makes Bateman now, at best, number 3 target in Baltimore, with Mark Andrews clearly operating as the number 1 target, and we're only projecting the Ravens to pass more. We haven't exactly seen it to this point, so it's a bold move for me to assume that an offense has been extremely run-heavy in the past, an offense that really hasn't supported even 1 wide receiver recently. To be able to say that they could support 2 would be quite a stretch. I currently have Rashod Bateman ranked as my wide receiver 60. He's currently being drafted as wide receiver 54, so I think that's perfectly fine. If you want to take a late round flyer on him, I think you can. I do still think that Rashod Bateman's a really talented player, but if he's going to operate behind Zay Flowers, I just don't see a world where this Ravens offense can support both of them. And obviously Odell is there as well. So is Nelson Aguilar. There are enough players in there that can make it a really muddy situation, and I'm just not really excited about Rashod Bateman anymore. I don't really see a world where you're ever really excited about starting him in your starting lineup, and he's just not a guy that I really find myself looking for very much in drafts anymore, no matter how late it really goes. So that'll do it for my risers and followers video. I'll be sure to be getting my rankings up to date. They should be on the website by the time you get this video. So if you want to go check out my full rankings, they're free at my website. Feel free to go check those out. If there are any other risers or followers or any news out of camp that you feel like I didn't touch on, anything that you think I should have brought up, feel free to let me know in the comments. I'm happy to give you my opinion on that. I'm sure I'm up to date and just maybe forgot about a player or two. If you guys have any other players that you guys have been moving up or down your rankings, let me know. I can see if I agree with you guys or not. Hope you guys have fun with your drafts this weekend. I know video's going to be coming out on August 25th, the Friday, and we should have plenty of drafts going on the 26th, 27th, so I wish you all luck in your drafts. Up next tomorrow, I'll be putting out a must-avoid players list where I'll go over 15 players that I'm avoiding in pretty much all of my drafts, so stay tuned for that one. If you want to make sure that you do get that video, please do subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. You can click the notification bell so you get notifications when more videos come out. That way you'll stay on top of everything, and you can make sure that you get all the videos that I'm putting out. I'll be putting out videos every single day up until the start of the NFL season, and then I'll be doing several videos a week as well over the course of the regular season. So I'm going to be here all year doing everything I can to help you guys win your leagues, and just stick with me, and I'm going to do my best to help you guys do that. So if you've already subscribed to the channel as well, please do just help the channel as well by liking the video. It really helps with the algorithm, really helps you know that I'm doing a good job as well, and it really helps the channel grow. It helps grow the community. So yeah, I want to thank you guys so much for watching the video, and I'll catch you next time. Thank you guys for watching. If you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to the channel, like the video, check out these other videos here if you haven't. If you want more content, please feel free to follow me on Twitter at RealSteelFFB. I'll be more active on there as the season goes on. Thanks. Catch you later.